Owal is, it's an extension of me, right? It's about an artist project of trying to kind of combine this sonic or timbral kind of innovation with, lyrical honesty. My folks were, my mom's from Puerto Rico and my dad's from Greece, and surprisingly, I was born and raised in Texas, and then live now in New York. So my whole life has kind of been about like fusion of different things, different spheres of life. And I spent a lot of time working as a composer for film music and video game music in Japan, and now kind of coming back now as Owal with an eye towards kind of what I consider, the most important parts of me, my roots. It's just been really amazing to get to work in this new kind of way of like saying, here's who I am. And that's what I think the Owal project is really about. It's interesting because, as you know, everyone does, you go through life and you collect these kind of like experiences that each of them kind of leaves a cool kind of mark on you. And as you kind of accumulate those, you kind of just become the person that maybe that you're meant to become. And so for me, that's been exactly what it's been in that, all of these various cultures and musical cultures have left bits and pieces kind of that stay kind of really ingrained in me. And I think that if anything, that's kind of made it all the more fulfilling and rewarding to get to kind of come all the way back around to kind of point zero for, look, this is my earliest recollections in my life, unless I remember something new, are from, Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican music, música el género urbano, merengue, bachata. So it means something uh, really kind of big to me to get to come back now and say, I've done all these things, I've had all these experiences, and I've been in all these places, but I am fundamentally this person, and this is the person that I want to, show off, and this is the culture that I want to kind of like pay homage to. It almost feels like I'm writing a love letter to Latin music, with what I'm doing now. Yes, he most definitely has. It's very funny because I really actually was surrounded by both a whole lot of Greek music, from Theodorakis and a lot of these kind of 20th century Greek writers. So he definitely has like a lot of jealousy there of like, come on, man, like you got to do some of this too. But all in time and in its own way that has left like a very strong influence on the way that I write kind of all of my music. But for me again, it just felt like the truest and most natural thing for me to do was pay, do this exact genre, be in Latin music. I don't want to bore you and keep you here for hours, so I'll keep the list short. But I think on the kind of really direct level, there's these kind of incredible people in the Latin music world. So Baboni, Noriel, Mike Towers. I could go on for a very long time, but you have those guys who are like a really direct influence on kind of what I'm doing. And there's a level slightly uh, abstracted that is like some of these really incredible songwriters and artists across the world, like J. Paul is a big one for me, Stromae, and for an American, Beirut, who I think is just incredible. So I'd say like those are probably the primary musical influences for me these days. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention, all of my like training and all my childhood was in classical music, and so I would say that a lot of the greats, looking at you, Bach, Vivaldi, Rameau, Mozart. These are Tchaikovsky. These are guys who I think are really big influences on the approach that I have to music, even if the musical language is so different. From the time I was, gosh, five, I think six, I was a violinist. I took it. Well, it's funny. The first year, I definitely didn't take it that seriously, but once I fell in love with it, which only took, I don't know, a year or two, it was it was just I could not be separated from that thing. I was with my violin all the time, and so violin was really the primary vehicle for me musically for so long. I then started composing and started writing classical music when I was a couple years later, so maybe around 12-ish. And then, slightly later in adulthood, something that I'd always wanted to do, I finally said, you know what, I'm going to dive in, and that was the lute, which is very kind of obscure instrument for a lot of people, but it has like a beautiful body of music that's played on it. So those are my big guys. I'd say violin and now lute and its kind of family of instruments. Actually, very topical because in this new single that I have coming out, it's called Jodas Con Mi, and in this record, the kind of like what we would call the instrumental or the beat is really provided by me playing on my kind of lute instrument. So one of them is the Baroque guitar, which they used to call la guitarra española, and the other one I have a little bit of charango in there, and then a little bit of lute, and so that's kind of the sound world that I was in when I was kind of trying to piece together how I wanted this to sonically come across while I was also writing lyrics, obviously. For those who don't speak Spanish, no jodas con mi means kind of don't screw with me or don't mess with me, and that's almost entirely kind of a great summation of what the record's about. It's kind of a record of asserting, it's a record about asserting yourself, or in my case, asserting myself, and kind of saying, look, here's who I am. I'm here, and I'm not going to let any kind of negativity or doubtage, haters, if you will, discourage me or kind of phase me in my kind of path and in my kind of journey to express myself. Yeah, this was a really deliberate thing, and I think that probably you could probably make a graph of like the older that you are a Spanish speaker, the more infuriated you'll be by this grammatical flout. But it really came from, of course, there's like considerations about syllable count, and I wanted to make sure the chorus was really tight syllabically. But a big part of it was just that I wanted to play on this kind of double entendre or this duality where no joda con mi, where me can also be me in English. And a nice also kind of thing that makes it work really well, in my opinion, is it kind of becomes a one of those fill in the blank things where it's kind of like no joda con mi blank, where you get to fill in, don't mess with whether that's my heart, that's my business, that's my hustle, just don't mess with it. So I've liked all of these aspects that help me kind of uh, just kind of position that chorus as an interesting kind of question mark where the listener themselves gets to decide like how am I gonna like interpret what's going on in this song. So this is kind of the first single that we're kicking off kind of a slew of releases that we have planned for this year, eventually culminating in an album. And, I'm just so excited about it. I'm excited to be releasing music. I'm excited for what's to come. So, please follow me at pretty much all social media platforms and all digital audio platforms at owal_music. Yeah, keep an eye peeled there for all the stuff that's coming. Yeah, it's a bit of a kind of a sonic question mark again. My name is Jorge Alejandro. That's my name in Spanish, and you know because this project was so so important to me, and it was about expressing yourself. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna call this Joal. Jorge Alejandro Joal. And then as I was kind of mulling over it and kind of thinking about it, I was like, you know what, I really like the sonority of kind of starting with that kind of open sound of the O. So I thought, you know what, let's just go with Oal. It has a little bit, it's easier to say, kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit more. And that's where I got Oal. It's probably not that exciting a story, but it means a lot to me that that's what the project's called. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Oal. Don't miss my new single, No Jodas Con Mi, available on digital platforms everywhere. And make sure to follow me on all social media at Oal_music. Hey, what's up? I'm Oal. Make sure to follow me on social media at Oal_music and on all digital audio platforms where you can listen to my new single, No Jodas Con Mi, and all the rest of my music.